Welcome to Startup Health TV. I'm Logan Plaster with another Health Moonshot update. Today in the show, I'm talking to Juan Pablo Segura, co-founder of BabyScripts, about virtual care for moms-to-be. Did you know that fully 50% of the counties in the US don't have a single OBGYN? That means that as many as 10 million women don't have an OB to go to for prenatal care or for primary care. Juan Pablo Segura and his co-founder Anish Sebastian built this company, BabyScripts, and one of the things they do is they put together a suite of devices that pairs with an app that allows OBs to monitor the health of expectant moms every day virtually. Given the access problem, this is an area of health that was really ripe for disruption in terms of virtual care, but COVID-19 put that over the edge. What used to be a nice to have for forward-thinking physicians is now a tech must-have, which is great news for expectant moms everywhere. We'll get into all that in the interview with Juan Pablo. We'll talk about his emphasis on Medicaid populations, why that's so critical right now, and get into why BabyScripts is doubling down on the mental health of expectant moms. Stick around.
Crazy.
All right, Juan Pablo Segura, co-founder of BabyScripts. Thanks for being with me today on Startup Health TV.
So great to be here with you.
For our viewers who might not know what you've built, just give us the elevator pitch, the quick understanding of what BabyScripts is.
Sure, absolutely. And again, thanks for having me on. So BabyScripts, essentially a new model for managing pregnancy care through technology. And so the idea and what we're singularly focused on is creating what we call virtual maternity care experiences. So right now in the US, there's a massive access to care crisis. 50% of counties in the US don't have a practicing OBGYN. And there's also kind of a 9,000 OB provider shortage today that makes it really hard for women to get the necessary amount of prenatal care. So what we do through both digital app experiences and remote patient monitoring is we essentially move the delivery of care out of the clinic and into the home through BabyScripts. And so right now, we're in 31 states. We cover about 200,000 women a year, pregnant women a year. We're working with more than 80 health systems and essentially creating these virtual maternity care experiences to help discover and identify problems a lot earlier in the pregnancy.
Obviously, everyone watching this knows that COVID-19 was a huge shot of adrenaline in the world of virtual care. And so BabyScripts was obviously sort of right place, right time for that. But more specifically, how did the coronavirus impact how people view virtual maternity care?
Yeah, to your point, it really was a shot of adrenaline in the system or in people's understanding of virtual care. When we were before COVID, obviously, we were on the cutting edge of technology, kind of care delivery in obstetrics. But what happened with COVID, and we would see this, and when we would go and pitch BabyScripts to practices, right? So you always had that kind of early adopter group of physicians or practitioners at a practice. And they were the ones leading the charge, trying to get BabyScripts installed. But you always had a couple holdouts, right? Yeah. The laggards. Yeah. And the way, and I think this is one of the challenges in healthcare transformation, is that everything in healthcare is done by consensus. Especially if it's more senior physicians in a practice, they can actually block the purchase or the change in kind of a new protocol. I think this kind of brings up a very interesting and separate conversation about what we can do with those kinds of structures and frameworks, and kind of making it easier to buy and to adopt new technology and innovation in care delivery. But so again, before COVID, you would have some holdouts that would really kind of delay or stop deals in their tracks. With COVID forced everyone to buy and to have to use virtual healthcare. And so what we're seeing now is that there's no longer this institutional holdout, practitioner that can block a deal. Like, virtual is here. No one can say that it doesn't work, because that's what had to be used for a year of care delivery, right? And so I think that's what's most exciting to me is that we've broken down the kind of the holdout or the laggard kind of typical block uh, or stalwart, right? And that's been that persona has almost disappeared, and that's what's going to usher in and help usher in even more innovation in digital care transformation.
Interesting. What about adoption among patients and their just general acceptance of virtual maternity care?
Yeah, I mean, we've done controlled, randomized, prospective trials, right? This was before COVID, to kind of showcase that patients want more options in their care, and that they are looking for 21st century experiences using technology, particularly in this patient population. I mean, we are generationally in a very different kind of place than where our parents or grandparents were, right? Where most women are working nowadays. They also have to. They're kind of not only either the breadwinners or obviously contributing to the household, but they're financially, but they're also in charge of childcare. So they're juggling a lot of very different kind of important just family dynamics, and for them to have to keep going into the office, waiting an hour in the waiting room, getting seen for 3 minutes in a provider that's got 30 patients a day on their schedule. That women were already asking for options. And I think with COVID, obviously it forced change, but I think it only amplified something that women were already asking for. And so, or just patients in general, right? It's not just specific to obstetrics, but it definitely, again, is amplifying, right, a much needed change in care delivery.
So I know you give moms a suite of tools, Bluetooth enabled devices. Maybe you could describe kind of what you give them, but more importantly, kind of, is it about the tech, or is it kind of more about how you use it and tie it into a holistic system?
Yeah, I know. So it's a great question. So just kind of nuts and bolts, the Baby Scripts experience, or at least the component parts. So yes, there's an app component, our app that you can download. You actually can't use it unless you're invited by your physician. And then there are a couple internet-enabled medical devices. So Bluetooth-enabled blood pressure cuffs, weight scales. We've even messed around with blood glucometers. So those are the kinds of devices that go in the Baby Scripts kit. Now, as it relates to scaling and what makes us special, yes, I think we've got a great app. Are quite a few algorithms, different kind of compliance matrices that we bring to the table on the tech side that make the product effective. But I would say, and I think this applies to kind of digital health at large, is really the secret sauce, or where you generate exponential value as a company, is whether or not you know how to fit into workflow, and whether you can actually change care protocols, and you have the capability of being able to integrate into the medical record, to be able to create data packages and risk profiles for payers. And so yes, the remote patient monitoring component parts, the infrastructure, all of that is important. But really how we've differentiated ourselves in the market is we're the only ones that can scale virtual care experiences across thousands, hundreds of thousands of patients. And getting into the care protocol piece is, I think, the last mile, and really the area that more people need to address, because again, the tech pieces, can become commodities. It's really what you do with that tech and how you integrate it.
Can you explain what you mean by changing care protocols? Obviously, you're kind of moving upstream into the physician's behavior.
Yeah. So for example, one of our products, we actually go in to a provider group and we will automate 50% of the routine prenatal care. So instead of a patient going in like let's say 20 times during the pregnancy, we actually will work with the practice to physically change how they see their patients at large, so across the entire practice, by relying on Baby Scripts tools. And so it's that ability to both incentivize, motivate change, create that infrastructure, those care protocols, answering those edge cases, That's really our expertise, on top of obviously keeping patients engaged, being able to integrate into triage. I mean, that's the BabyScript special sauce. And you can't just buy that off the shelf. And that's what you need the research for, you need the validation for, and that's what makes us pretty special.
Got it. So what I'm guessing is, what I'm hearing is, the patient is now getting automated texts at an appropriate time with a question, a chance for them to maybe respond with a piece of data. I'm guessing all of that goes into the record.
Yeah, I mean, now we're talking more about the patient. I was talking more about the provider perspective.
Got it.
Yeah, but the patient, obviously, there's an app. There's it's kind of an Instagram-esque timeline experience with relevant content. They can pair their devices through our app. They can take their measurements at home. We integrate that data back into provider triage. So if anything's wrong, we can alert the provider within 15 minutes that there's a problem. And so, yeah, I mean, that's where the tech piece of BabyScripts comes in. And that's what makes us really special, is that whole system behind the scenes that obviously can take the data and filter out things that are important and not important. But again, I think it's a double-edged or double-sided coin, right? You need to have a tech product, a scalable platform, but you also have to have that capability to really integrate into provider workflow. And that's what, it's that combination that makes us unique.
Last year during the pandemic, I understand you came out with a virtual maternity care playbook for underserved populations. And I wonder if you could speak to that for a minute and kind of where do you see this going and growing?
But yeah, I think the first thing that we did with COVID and the onset of COVID is we saw that the traditional barriers, right? So already there was an infrastructure problem in the delivery of OB care before COVID, right? 50% of counties don't have an OB. More than 55% of counties don't have a practicing nurse midwife. So there were already issues. And so when we kind of ramped up to help our providers and new providers use virtual care to help their patients have a healthy pregnancy, we saw that very quickly, like, this space could start to ignore and exacerbate a lot of the already standing issues that exist. And, obviously the conversation on race has evolved a lot in the last 9 months. And it has had to, because of all of the systemic challenges that we have. But, one of the things we saw was that there were just a lot of uneducated and also kind of racist opinions on, what patients, like what, for example, Medicaid moms actually want out of their pregnancy. I mean, there's these myths that patients care about their health, that they're completely irresponsible or just irresponsible in general around their behaviors. And so, we created a playbook to showcase, 70% of the patients on BabyScripts are Medicaid patients. And so we have a lot of data. We have the ability to really shape the conversation. And so we just released a playbook and to kind of start dispelling some of the myths around using technology to help Medicaid moms that are pregnant. And, it obviously got a lot of acclaim and a lot of recognition, which I appreciate. But I think the tech companies have to be very, cognizant that, it's not just we're building products, like we're also part of the conversation, and we have to contribute to the conversation because, there are a lot of very, again, uneducated, and it's really like sad kind of notions, even I'd say in the investor community. And the investor community is changing, thank God. But a lot of people wouldn't want to touch Medicaid with a 10-foot pole. And it's like, what are you talking about? It's one of the largest payers in the US. 50% of pregnancies are on Medicaid. Like, if we're going to make a dent and we're going to help moms, we got to tackle this. We got to go ahead and really focus on this patient population. So yeah, that's a long answer, but I get spirited when we start talking about these things.
Yeah, huge need, huge opportunity. And I'm glad you guys have focused on it. Well, I think last question is really kind of the future question. You guys have had a big year last year. This year, you were recently named one of the 5 health startups to watch by Entrepreneur Magazine. Looking ahead, two things. What's next for in the frontier of virtual maternity care? And then more large, in a bigger way, what's next for Baby Scripts?
Yeah, so I don't want to share too much of the product roadmap, without to anyone that might maybe be a potential competitor or has more nefarious plans with our roadmap. But I think a big focus of ours has always been Medicaid. It will continue to be that. And we actually are about to announce some pretty large partnerships with some managed Medicaid plans across the country. So, really excited about that. I'll tease just one little piece of what we're working on, which is really substance abuse, particularly in this patient population. So we're really excited about, doing some more work in that space. And then we're the outcomes that we're getting. I mean, again, there's a lot that's coming pretty quick, but to be continued, and tune into that.
I lied. I have one more question, which is that I believe you're piloting a program around mental health. Is that true?
Yeah. So we already released the news there, and that's our newest experience, maternal mental health.
Yeah.
Which
why is mental health so important to maternal health?
When you look at the post experience, I mean, we really leave our moms hanging as a society, as a country. More than 60% of moms have the baby blues. About 20% of moms have clinical postpartum depression. So when we start looking at, where gaps of care are, I mean, postpartum, the fourth trimester is just, needs desperately help. And so, that's our newest product, maternal mental health, a whole screening tool set with interventions and, a whole suite of incredible kind of risk detection flags. So we're really excited about that.
That is awesome. All right. Well, Juan Pablo, that's the time we have. Always great to catch up with you, hear about what you're building. Excited to see that you're moving into these new areas, new large payers, mental health, Medicaid. And we're going to be watching you closely in 2021.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate being on.
All right. Take care. Be well. A quick word about this show, in case you're new around here. At Startup Health, we believe in broadcasting the stories of health moonshot progress, the stories of the most forward-thinking entrepreneurs in health. If you want more of this good news about healthcare's problem solvers, make sure that you subscribe to our channel, hit that notification button, and follow us on social media at Startup Health.